Welcome to the Author Next Door,
where we talk writing, publishing, and the business behind the books.
This podcast is for writers who are a few steps ahead into the journey. Maybe you've published, maybe you're planning what's next, and you realize the questions aren't getting easier, they're just getting more interesting.
Sometimes it's just our fabulous selves. Sometimes we bring friends to the table, but it's always lived experience and information you can use.
So pull up a chair. The conversation starts now.
Welcome to episode 65. I'm Angela Haas, and I'm here with my co-host, Cassie Newell. And this month, it's Anything Goes, where we talk about whatever we want. After years of working in retail and watching customers make split-second decisions, I can tell you this: color sells. So today we're diving into something that feels creative, but is actually deeply strategic: color theory. If you stripped your book cover down to black and white, would it still signal the same genre? If your website was all script and no color, would that be as intriguing? I don't think so. And that's because color carries meaning. It sets the tone, it signals mood, it builds brand recognition. And whether you're selling online or standing behind a table at an event or designing your brand and your website, color is creating a vibe before you even open your mouth or put your book out there. Color theory is actually rooted in centuries of visual study. Did you know that Sir Isaac Newton was the first one to develop the color wheel and start to put colors together that looked better? Today, I'm actually going to do a presentation. So for those of you who want to see the visuals that are going to go along with that, please check this out on YouTube when it airs. But for those of you who don't want to, you can still listen along. I'm just going to be sharing my screen and going through a PowerPoint. But before we begin, I want to do this exercise with Cassie and with everyone. So I do this in my presentation. And also, a little bit more background on this. This is something that I used to do and rely on heavily as a merchandiser and a book buyer. When I was a book buyer, the covers spoke to me instantly. I would work with like Hachette and Penguin reps. Like, they would always recommend things to me, but I just would go into these shows, into the Hachette booth, and I'd just be browsing. I was really drawn to certain book covers over other ones. The cover communicated through color before I even had a chance to read more about the book. And so understanding how colors work together is also merchandising concepts, which when you're thinking about your author business, especially in-person events, you want to make sure you're merchandising your table in the right way to attract customers. So the first exercise I do with authors in this is have you do a visualization technique with me. Like, Cassie, I want you to tell us what you would do. So if you, everything that's you, everything that you love and like, if that were a brick and mortar bookstore, what would it look like, smell like, open the door? What's the first things you're seeing? What are the colors? What's the vibe? Tell us what the Cassie Newell bookstore is, or the CK Darling bookstore, I guess, your author brand.
Yeah.
What does that bookstore look like? What is it?
So I would anticipate that my bookstore would be a lot of neutral but cozy colors and textures with thrown in bright colors. So I tend to like pinks and peaches and blues and all the colors. Like, I am a colorful person. But because I'm very romance, I try to stay in kind of my peaky peach lane. So I would imagine lots of whites and neutral khaki browns, but lots of pops of color.
Okay. So what does it smell like? What kind of decor do you have in there? I'm going to take you further. You already have your brand, but I think for someone building their brand, what is you? And what would
Yeah.
you be if you were a retail store?
Yeah. So I think to define CK Darling and me, I'm I'm pretty funny. I'm comedical. I laugh a lot. Um, I find humor in just about everything. I'm a 12-year-old, basically, um, rolled into a ball. So smell-wise, like, to me, it's like the fun smells. Like, I love vanilla, but I love bubblegum. It would be a
Yeah.
mosh pit of different things. It could be cinnamon, definitely sugar cookies because
Mhm.
high octane, high energy. At the same time, I love teas. So I like chai tea a lot. And it's interesting because when I'm in my more calm moods, it's very much lavender. Like you can ask my entire family, they'll be like, "What does Cassie smell like?" Lavender. So
Mhm.
like those types of smells. I love florals, because they're bright. The colors are bright. They're fun. They're
Mhm.
poppy. That would be more me. On the opposite side, when I'm having a really bad day, be dark and moody.
So there'd be a corner
Mahogany
with like
smells.
a
Yeah.
corner with a worn leather chair and dark
Yeah,
lighting.
a worn leather
Yeah.
chair,
Yeah.
mahogany, like all
Mhm.
the like deep, rich things too, because I have that
Right.
side of me. But if we're walking into CK Darling's store, it's going to be neutrals, it's going to be different textures, and there's going to be pops of pinks and bright colors around. So, yeah,
Yeah, and that's it. What do you think the number one favorite color is?
blue, probably.
Yeah, it's blue.
Yeah,
And blue, it can represent the ocean, but most often it represents calm,
yeah,
peace, tranquility. But yeah, blue is the
yeah.
number one favorite color.
I like blue too.
So, okay, well, I'm going to switch to my presentation. According to the Management Decision Journal, 85% of shoppers' purchase decisions are influenced by color alone. And decisions are made within 90 seconds of the first impression. Oftentimes, when we're merchandising in a gift store, we're
Mhm.
creating what we call is a story. We're putting similar things of certain colors together so that we can create the whole feeling around those specific products. But color draws people in more than anything. So, what's the color wheel? The color wheel is obviously a wheel of colors, but there's three different types of colors on the color wheel. Complementary, those are the opposite sides of the wheel, which is high contrast, eye catching, like blue versus orange. We see that on sports uniforms, right? It's bold, it represents confidence, but bold and happiness, which is what orange and yellows represent. Then we have colors that are analogous. I said it right. Thank you. I'm proud of myself. Colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. So harmonious, cohesive feel, blue green, and then variations of blue greens, which are teals and turquoises and different variations of those colors. Pink and red, all those colors that sit next to each other. Those are really complementary. Monochromatic, shades of one color. So sophisticated minimal, like navy to sky, ice blue, those are monochromatic colors. All of these colors work well together. There's certain colors that don't work well together, and that's what we want to learn about. But if you can learn about what complementary, analogous, and monochromatic colors are, this will help you when you're building your brand. Just in
Right.
general, what colors do you like? What are your favorite colors? Why do you feel the way you feel when you're working with those types of colors? And then you start to build your brand around those colors. Now, I will say, obviously, if you're a science fiction writer, but your favorite colors are pink, well, you want to go more with the branding and the feel around what you're specifically writing. But if you have just general interest websites and you want to build your brand around that, you can use your favorite colors as long as they do work together. So I love Pinterest, although Pinterest is having its own AI slot problem. But Pinterest is still a great way to find things like this. And you can just do general searches for peacock color palettes or pastel color palettes, bright oranges and blue color palettes, and see how, like, this color palette all the way on the left, that's like a variation of orange and blues. And those just different variations that work well together. Well, if you're really drawn to that, maybe those are the colors in your business card or on your website because it just really represents who you are. I want to take us through a little bit about seeing the visuals of color themes of bestsellers so we can see this. Yellow and orange. Yellow and orange in general mean happiness, excitement, success, optimism, and so you'll see that on romance covers. You'll see that on rom-coms or just general women's fiction that just have a fun, upbeat message. Black, what do we see? Billionaire romance covers, right? Mafia
Right.
romance, because black in a book cover with a certain typography is communicating power, sophistication, mystery, elegance.
Mhm.
Red, passion, love, danger, power, energy. That's what red means. And you're going to see that with bold typography on a lot of thriller, mystery, crime. You'll see some of like those reds and orange filter into science fiction sometimes, just sort of that danger or first contact. But I see a lot of red in thriller covers. Green, luck, harmony, nature, envy. Green communicates something. That's my favorite color. I love emerald green. And so I'm just generally drawn to that calm nature harmony that it just gives off. But we're seeing green on a lot of these YA covers, fantasy, some science fiction, but definitely you're just getting a whole vibe. Even when I'm changing the slides, I feel like the energy changes with each color, right? Purple. Where do we see purple in book covers? Paranormal romance, right? YA, lots of fantasy book covers as well in using purple because purple's imagination, it means royalty, art, spirituality, mystery. All of those things go into that genre, right? So again, you want to make sure that there's no matter what the image is or what the typography is, you definitely, if you've got purple, or violet, lavenders, any of those, if you're writing paranormal romance or fantasy, purple is a good bet to have on those covers. But again, color doesn't stop at the cover. Your brand color should appear everywhere a reader might find you. Your author website should be consistent palette, professional brand, but you want your readers to like, go to your site. And again, the colors are going to start to communicate before they start even reading anything. So you want readers to know this is exactly who this author is when they go to your website. And then social media, even you should be using consistent colors in your graphics so that again, it's communicating that feeling, but it's building that instant recognition. Your newsletter is another place to use color. Header colors, button colors, all reinforce your brand, right? I've talked about your in person table, your tablecloth, your signage, your swag, even your banners. A lot of authors are using those retractable banners. So those should have the appropriate colors. And I get some questions about like, what if we write in multiple genres? Well, if you have a table and you have romance books, paranormal romance, maybe sci-fi or thriller, you want to at least create its own story, its own presentation. So if you're writing romance, you should have the colors that are associated with romance and are communicating that brand of romance that you're writing. And so you have a little story all together. So put all the romance swag and all the everything that's communicating that color and that feeling all together. And then make a different section for sci-fi, a different section for your other genres. So kind of split it up instead of just putting everything out all together. If you have a podcast, YouTube, all the colors should communicate who you are. Okay, so here's some quick ways you can audit your author brand. Pull up your book cover and ask yourself these questions. What's the dominant color on your cover? Does that color take up the most visual space? What emotion does that color signal? Use the color meaning chart that I talked about to make sure that whatever that color means, that that's what you're trying to communicate. Number three is, does that emotion match your genre? And it should. Obviously, if you're thrilling, you want to have more reds. If you're writing mafia or billionaire romance, you want to have more of just that dark, black, sort of that mystery, but just a boldness and a sophistication undercover. Um, Number four, do your other covers or your brand use the same palette? Consistency equals a recognizable brand, but you may have to make some adjustments if you're writing in completely different genres. Number five, where else can you bring this color into your brand? Website, social, table setup, swag. So use these tips to audit your author brand and just make sure that the colors are on point. Here's some color combos that might work against you. Now, you may be looking at these and be like, I love neons. Well, that's totally fine. Some people love different color combos. And it's saying red and green work against each other, but obviously, technically in the color wheel, they may work against each other, but it reads as Christmas. So if you're wanting to communicate Christmas, maybe you're writing holiday romance, obviously you're going to have red and green. But you just want to make sure that the colors you have aren't communicating a different association. Purple and yellow has such high contrast, and they're just not complementary on the color wheel. So it can feel jarring, but it also acts as like a warning sign. Sometimes black and navy don't always go together because they're too similar. Sometimes if colors are too similar, sometimes it's like, is that black or is that navy?
Wearing shoes that are navy or black and then wearing the opposite one to the opposite pair
Yeah,
because this girl has
exactly.
done that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes red and purple don't go together because they're both dominant colors and they fight for attention. So that's another thing to look at your colors. Do you have two like really powerful colors with powerful meanings and they're not fighting each other? Because usually you want to have, especially if you're merchandising, you want to have a really bold main color and then other colors that complement but don't take away from your main color. Brown and orange loses the warmth of each individually. And they're also similar in like they kind of have the same base palette. And so they don't always work together as complementary. If you love brown, you want to maybe pair that with some more neutral shades of it or some beiges and just things that might make that pop. And neon usually just creates eye fatigue. And sometimes it can vibrate on screen and in print in a weird way. Just like stripes can do weird things to your eyes. I've had tops that were just like, those small stripes. And I felt like I was watching a TV. Sometimes color combos don't work well together, even if you love them. Just be aware of it. Okay. So here's your color cheat sheet. Again, color equals your silent salesperson. Readers decide based on the color of your cover in 90 seconds. Every color tells a story. Make sure yours matches your genre promise. Wrong colors can equal a broken contract. A reader who feels misled won't come back. Consistency in your brand is everything. One palette across all your touch points just communicates that you know who you are and know how to put yourself out there in a consistent way. Pinterest or bookstore walks are great market research. Sometimes I would go to like Home Depot or Lowe's and just make my own color palettes. Like they give away those free paint samples. Don't abuse that. But like if you want to, if you're deciding on your brand and you want to browse their paint swatch samples, go in there and kind of put some of yours together. And then you can kind of take them home. And also, one color that you think is dominant when you have the print book doesn't always communicate well if it's in a thumbnail. So definitely want to test your colors in your paperback versus, your ebook, and see how those are working. So homework is pull up your cover. What color dominates? Does it match what you write? And hey, share it with us on socials or on YouTube if you want. Okay, that was my quick little dive into color and everything. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing.
You did it.
I'm so proud. I didn't shut off the recording. So
So,
yeah, I love colors. I love talking about colors and figuring what their meanings
it's
are
like
and
me
how
in
they make you feel.
design.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned color creates an instant vibe, especially in person, which I love the conversation about like in-person events. I think that's
Mhm.
really important. If you think about that, what are some color mistakes you see authors making that are actually hurting their ability to sell at events, specifically at events?
I would say sometimes it's not enough color. So you got
Yeah.
to think about this
You're not
too.
standing out. Is that
Right.
what you mean?
Because
Hmm.
uh, people, again, well, I don't know if I've discussed this enough to say again, but I know I've said these things in presentations, but when you're at an in-person event, placement is everything. And if you're not placed in the right way, you need to work harder to attract customers to your table. So shoppers shop to the right. So you kind of want to be on the right. You want to
Interesting.
be, yeah, it's all, I think I can break that down further in like a different webinar when we talk about subliminal messaging and how shoppers are kind of programmed. It's just the
Uh-huh.
same as when you go in a grocery store, certain
Uh,
food is on the right. In my grocery store, when you first walk in, and not all grocery stores are the same way, but the produce, fresh, salad to the right, right as you walk in. So people will tend to go to the right and then kind of come full circle. I think it's like counterclockwise, right? Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
So if you're at an event, you should probably be right when people are walking into the right. If you can't choose where that is, you have to understand that you're going to be sometimes there might be like 50 other authors in the same room and they all have what sometimes happens, especially if you're at a banquet hall or in a
Mm,
conference room, there's a table with a black tablecloth, right?
right.
Now, sometimes you can decorate that or put your own tablecloth over. But where I've seen people, especially author events I've hosted, you saw only the black tablecloth, books facing up, not on stands where like people could see the cover walking by. Some shoppers don't really want to engage. They want to just like notice from
Peruse.
afar,
Yeah.
peruse because people feel bad if they go up to an author and they decide that I don't really want your books, and they feel guilty for walking away without buying anything sometimes. So
Yeah.
sometimes they're very cautious. They're not going to go up. So the more color, brand colors, book color covers, and book cover colors on their cover that you can communicate so that the person is drawn in and they are like they understand what you're about without really talking to you.
Right.
That's going to be the key. So you don't want to go too intense because also selling is subliminal. If there's too much going on in your table and this color is dominant and this color is over here and there's too much going on, people will be, that's too much for me and I'm overwhelmed and I'm going to go over here.
Right.
So I would say first it's the absence of color, but it's also making sure that you're finding balance so you're not overwhelming your customer as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because the vibe you're shooting off, right, is the vibe that they're either looking for or repelled by, and you don't want the
Right.
ones that are repelled by it. right?
Mhm.
Because that's not the book
Yeah.
they're looking for, right? So
Yeah.
it's really good
Yeah.
advice. I'm starting to see, and I don't know if it's my design background, but I am starting to see tropes as colors now. It's really
Yeah.
interesting to me. I think red also is coming out, and of course, you always have to remember there are shades and tones of colors.
Mhm. Oh,
So,
yeah.
when I say purple, I'm not necessarily meaning neon purple. I'm talking soft purples usually,
Oh,
because the
yeah.
darker, more deeper purples definitely is more fantasy driven. And you'll
Yeah.
definitely see that in romantasy. But I see red as really interesting in more passion tropes
Mhm.
too. And I'm just
Mhm.
like, this is, I don't know, it's kind of fun to think about. Like, you might have to add
Yeah.
that.
Well,
Yeah.
and especially if you're doing search, like mentioning back to the shades, I would put a color through a thesaurus
Oh,
and
fun.
see what comes up. So if you, let's just go to word hippo, what's another word for purple?
Uh-huh.
So many fun colors come up because I don't really like, I wouldn't say that I
Lilac.
love purple,
Right.
but amethyst. Oh my gosh. The second you say amethyst, I know what that absolutely
Mm.
looks like. And mostly because I used to buy jewelry, as a jewelry buyer, I picked out amethyst, but it's got
Right.
like, creamy shades of some white crystals in it, but then deep, deep purples and some
Right.
magentas. But, you know, uh, technically under purple, mulberry, wine, mauves, you get into all those.
Mm-hmm.
You go mauve and you get those colors. And that's how you can start to search too. So green, what does green really mean? But you can go into emerald,
Mm-hmm.
jade, lime, pine.
Right.
Um, I'm seeing sometimes if it's small town
Mm.
or lumberjack core, I'm seeing those kind of lumberjack tropes with green or pine colors,
Yeah.
like
And
mountains,
flannel.
nature. And but yeah, so age, bottle
Right.
green. There's like images that come up with when you think of bottle green, looking at a green glass bottle.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, if you're trying to like figure out what your colors are, maybe if you're like, I don't like purple. Well, do you love amethyst? Because that's another type
Right.
or shade. So putting your color through that thesaurus, can't say that word. That'll that'll give you some other ideas, about what your
Right.
colors you're responding to for sure.
So, speaking about moving away from covers and more around author brands, like if
Mhm.
you just distilled this down to 3 colors in terms of prioritization, would from a feel standpoint, would you prioritize it by emotion, genre, and market trends, or how would you prioritize it? Would it be market trends first, then genre, and then emotion? Like, how do you know how to prioritize that emotional feel to figure out those colors?
I think you just have to decide what you wanna communicate first,
Mm,
you know? I don't think I mean, market trends are gonna dictate what comp colors you have, but what do you wanna communicate in your brand?
mm,
Is that's what your genre is, what genres you're writing? Is that what you're communicating?
right.
Is it just the general feel of what you like to write as an author? What you want people to come away with when they check into your website, when they look you up on social media? What are you communicating as an
Mhm.
author to your customer and to your reader? Because
Love
it's
it.
communication. When we're developing our brand to understand how important color is, there's so much more to what actual colors mean and how they make people feel. But as long as you're willing to do that research and maybe possibly retool, maybe your website is not effectively communicating who you are to your readers or what you write. If you're writing cozy mystery, small town, what's the colors associated with that town? There's going to be different colors that are associated with a California town than a Colorado town, than a New York town or a New Jersey town. Start doing your research and understanding just what appeals to you, and then you'll be able to better communicate that to your reader. Yeah. I could summarize this by saying first start with what you like, right?
Mhm.
Who are you? Do that little exercise with the bookstore. If you're creating your own vibe that's an actual physical space, go through the exercise of designing you as a bookstore. First, the colors, the feel, the smells. Is there a worn leather chair in the corner with dark lighting? A candle? Or is it a bright pop of pink against a white wall and there's hearts cascading down the wall? Is that the feeling? So take that feeling and try to decide the colors, figuring out what the colors you like mean, and then starting to adjust your brand in that way. But first, starting with color wheel and what colors actually go together, and then finding out, obviously, what you like, and then how you can communicate your brand through color so their readers know exactly who you are. Okay, those are my takeaways. So, what about you? What are some personal updates? What you're reading,
So,
watching moments?
yeah,
Yeah.
my daughter and my husband were like, "Okay, you really have to watch Sinners. You read all this vampire stuff, you have to watch it." And I was just like, "Oh,
Hmm.
it's gonna be so like jump scary and all the things." So I watched it. We watched it this last weekend, middle of the day, all the lights on. Like
Yeah, I would
I
have to
had to
watch it.
have
Same.
the
Yeah.
right
Hmm.
setting.
Hmm.
Um, uh, big bowl of popcorn. It was so good.
Oh,
It
yeah.
is
I've
a
heard it's just
mosh
amazing.
pit of different flavors and story, and Michael B. Jordan is just yes, you
Forget
can see
it.
why he
I
won
mean,
an
I can't
Oscar.
with him. He's
Yeah,
just
I can't.
everything.
He's like my fave. But
Yeah.
Haley Steinfeld in it, incredible. It was just so good, and you can see how my daughter had told me this universe does not stop with this movie, and you can see
Hmm.
how. And there are so many fun threads to pull upon, and there's so much of US history and culture that they can just twist and mold. And I'm super excited now for this whole universe. Like, I haven't been this excited since like the first Marvel movies first came out and you knew
Hmm.
that it was all expanding and you wondered where it was
Yeah,
going. Now I'm a
totally.
little tired of it. Sorry,
Yeah,
guys.
exactly.
But this so
Hmm.
exciting. And I'm funny about horror thriller type things, but I think I'm in it. Yeah. I think
Yeah,
I'm in it.
amazing.
You?
Yeah. Okay. Well, by the time this episode airs, this will be old news, possibly, but there's still a lesson in here. So, Chapel Roan,
Yeah.
who, yeah, she
The
sang
singer?
Pink Pony Club.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she's into shock and awe. Like, we get it. That's her thing. But what's coming out is how awful she is to fans.
Oh.
And supposedly there was a story, I think, gosh, I can't, it's either Spain or UK, something else, somewhere else. But just this guy's daughter, they were in a restaurant and this guy's daughter, like, supposedly, this is all allegedly, I'm sure there's
Right.
other angles to everything, but the daughter, the little girl just went to go see if it was Chapel Roan and just to kind of walk by her table and sort of like, yeah, that's
Mhm.
didn't come in contact with her or try, but the security like went a little rogue on the family, like back off and like so that came out and then all this other footage online about her just like being pushing her assistant and just being like a terrible human being
No.
allegedly. If people are out there, I love her, that's totally fine. I'm the threads reporter, okay? So but
It's
the
not your own
lesson
opinion here. It's what you're
right.
seeing.
No,
Yeah.
I don't totally have an opinion. I don't think any celebrity who's a jerk to fans, I mean, it's balance. Obviously, if they're constantly being
True.
attacked for autographs every time they come out of a car or restaurant, we don't want that kind of behavior. But at the same time, a little girl is walking by your table and you unleash your security on
Mhm.
her. And so what's happening is people who've worked in the industry coming out and just saying she's a terrible person. She's awful to fans. The thing is, people, nothing is private anymore. Okay. I
Right.
mean, you do this once, it blows up on social media. It's the same thing where like authors call out reviewers, right?
Mm.
Take a second, think about if it's worth it. It may make you feel good in like the 5 seconds that you actually like, who wouldn't love to kind of silently call out a reviewer who left a jerk 1-star review? But it's not worth it. I will tell you, it might make you feel better, but to say the least is to say the most, right? So if you a non-response gives you actually more power than if you're just calling these people out, and that stuff stays around forever because then that person shares it, this person shares it, and before you know it, you get more bad reviews. So it's like
Mhm.
having grace online and in public, how you present yourself outline and in the world because it can go viral for all the wrong reasons, right?
Yeah,
So
for sure.
that's my
I
lesson.
think there's a happy medium to that because I've seen people just really go after authors or the narrators
Yeah.
that they've
Mhm.
chosen. And I've
Mhm.
seen some authors really come back with like the best responses. It wasn't really feeding into an argument, but they were protecting,
Mhm.
their creative piece, their authors, their team.
Yeah,
I
sure.
respect that. I
Of
really
course.
do
Yeah,
versus
of
just
course.
ignorement.
Yeah, I mean, standing up for yourself in some way and or your team or people
Yeah.
that work for you, obviously that's awesome. I'm just saying, like, trying to track down a reviewer and call them out online,
Well, and to get
probably
into
not
a
right.
schoolyard fight online is
Right.
never a
Yeah.
good idea.
Half the time it's a
Like, yeah.
bot. It's
Yeah.
you're arguing with an iPad that's one of 100 in someone's room who's trying to
Multiple
troll the
things.
internet, so
Yeah.
it's
They're
not worth
just
it.
trying to get a rise out of you anyway because it gives them more fuel to say more and do more. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
No need for that.
Um, one more thing.
Okay.
Here's our lumatory question. What is the weirdest food you have ever eaten?
Weirdest? I've eaten some pretty weird stuff. I've tried all kinds of different things. I've had squid ink noodles. I've eaten
Oh,
snails. Yeah.
mm, no,
I've
thank
tried
you.
all kinds of weird things. My best friend is Korean, and I've tried a lot of different Korean foods. So a lot of people would be like, "What? And squid ink noodles? Oh my god!" My youngest daughter, give them all to her. She will like
Mm.
devour them. So yeah, I've eaten a lot of. I've tried baby octopus. Was not my favorite.
Oh,
My girls
no.
loved it though. So, yeah, I don't know. I will always try because I'm
Mhm.
just open-minded like that. Doesn't mean I will always love it. Snails to me is like oysters, so it was fine.
I think I've had escargot
Yeah.
and it was drenched in garlic and butter, so it was fine, but I
Yeah.
just didn't wanna picture what I was eating, but I'm not an adventurous. That's probably
Oh,
the
really?
strange No, I'm
I've
not an
tried
adventurous eater.
chocolate-covered grasshoppers too.
No. No, thank you.
Yeah, it's not my favorite.
Dirt is fine. I'd rather eat dirt.
Dirt
No,
is
thank you.
fine.
I probably wouldn't survive, so
Yeah.
no, thank you. Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to give us a review and rating wherever you listen to the podcast. It really helps us with visibility. And if you're interested in catching the exclusive, The Author Next Door After Dark this month, we're talking emotional wounds, attachment styles, conflict reactions, third act choices, and vulnerability levels. So we'll see you there. Until then, keep writing, keep doing. Bye.
Bye. We're so glad you joined us for this episode of The Author Next Door.
Writing is a long game, and it's one best played with community curiosity, and a little grace for yourself along the way.
Keep showing up, keep learning, and keep telling stories only you can tell.
We'll see you next week, right here next door.